What embarrassing or disturbing thing have you found while helping a friend move? Before we start with the first story, please hit subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Story 1. I was helping my dad clear out my grandpa's old stuff after he passed away. We were in the garage and we found a huge box of VHS tapes. My dad kept handing me a stack at a time to go inside and run them through the VCR to see what's on them, basically deciding if we should keep or trash them. The first one I popped in and started, and it was porn. The second one is also porn. Third, porn. That's all they were, my grandpa's porn collection. I did check them all just in case, but I told my dad they were just random garbage recorded off of TV, and so he said to toss them. Never told a soul. I guess till now. Story 2. Not moving, but my friend had just bought a house from a nice old lady. We were gutting the basement so he could renovate it, and when we ripped down part of the ceiling, an old leather satchel fell to the ground. We both looked at the satchel, looked at each other, and assumed we just found a bag full of cash. We opened it up, wondering how we were going to spend our newfound fortune. There was no money. What there was were pictures, lots of pictures, of the nice old lady and her husband and their friends, and none of them were wearing any clothes. And they were apparently swingers, and they were into some freaky shit. We did the only thing we felt was appropriate. When we put up the new ceiling, we sealed it right back up in there for some future homeowners to stumble upon. Story 3. Helping a friend move with his dad, and he asked me to be the one to carry this specific box to the truck. I, knowing my friend has not come out to his parents, assumed some stuff about the contents and said no more about it except, I accept this responsibility. I picked it up, heavier than I expected it to be. The tape on the bottom gives and a single rubber dick falls out, right in front of his dad. My poor friend looks absolutely horrified, and his dad looks at him, asks, "Is that thing clean?" Friend basically squeaks yes. Dad picks it up, tosses it back in the box, and continues taking stuff to the truck. I get an update on the follow-up in the next couple days. His dad has known he was gay since high school. Story 4. The mother of a guy I was dating was a former drug addict. She had gotten clean and had been clean for years. She finally was able to buy a house, and we were all so excited. We were packing up her little apartment, and she had to warn us that when she was in active addiction, she would hide drugs and paraphernalia throughout her house. And she was pretty sure she'd already disposed of everything over the years. But don't freak out if we find something. Sure enough, we found a couple of needles and pipes hidden in the most random off-the-wall places, on top of cabinets she can't even reach, behind the fridge, etc. Story 5. When me and my sister were younger, we were fart monsters. Constantly farting, and I still have no idea why. My sister was notorious for sharting to the point where my mom would threaten to ground her if she didn't at least make an attempt to get to the toilet first. It continued for a while, but then it just stopped. It wasn't until we moved out of my childhood home and had to clean out her closet that we found all of her years-old stained underwear. She kept sharting and just threw the underwear into her closet until she eventually forgot about it. Never once smelled until we unearthed the panties. Was absolutely vile, but also somehow hilarious. Story 6. Hi, I'm the embarrassing friend. Several years ago, a couple buddies came to help me move out of my dorm room in college. For context, I had borrowed money from Buddy A about a month ago. While helping me lift away all the clear tubs, Buddy A notices that I have a GPU box in there. As he confronted me about it, I sheepishly admitted that I had purchased a new GPU as it had a really good price on Black Friday. He laid into me about it, and I did pay back Buddy shortly afterwards. We're still good friends. Story 7. This isn't mega disturbing or anything, I'm just easily scared by dolls. But while helping a friend move, I stumbled upon an awkward discovery when I opened a mistakenly unlabeled box in the living room. It was packed with an extensive collection of porcelain dolls. Each doll had an unsettlingly realistic face, and some were arranged in poses that made them appear as if they were staring right at me. My friend walked in, noticed my frozen stance and the open box, and we both burst into laughter. She explained her grandmother had a penchant for collecting these dolls, and she inherited them unexpectedly. We quickly closed the box, but not before the eerie feeling had set in. It was definitely one of the more bizarre and disconcerting finds during a move. Story 8. I was helping my friend move furniture out of his office so we could redo the floor. We moved the desk and his treadmill, etc. After a while, I realized the wall behind the desk and the floor under it were covered in this dried, dripping goo. There were spots where the goo was obviously shot at the wall, and then dripped down, like Jackson Pollock had been hucking transparent paint at the sheetrock. The goo on the floating floor had turned into dirty, fuzzy spots. There was even minor, superficial damage to the plywood subfloor from good festering there. It took me a while, but I realized all the good stains and dripping syrup-like streaks on the wall were all directly under the desk, a few feet from where he was probably sitting and jerking off for years. Story 9. When my Gramps was dying, he instructed his kids, who hated him, to leave the hospital and pack up his house, donate or trash anything and everything, including his car. My dad reached under the car seat and pulled out a shotgun that was cut in half and the serial number scratched off. My dad's fingerprints were all over it, so he freaked and called the police and explained himself. Apparently the cops got all giddy and explained how long they have been after him, connecting him to a murder, and this was the weapon they needed. I guess he shot his friend in his sleep over a gambling money dispute. He died 3 days later. Story 10. Friend asked me to hand him a set of pliers from a toolbox in the bedroom. Reached around, opened the toolbox behind me and found, not tools. He and his wife kept their bedroom toys in a toolbox under the bed that we were taking apart as they moved. Instead of tools, I was greeted with a large assortment of dildos, lube, condoms, and other items I couldn't identify in the 3 seconds it took for my brain to start working again and decide this was not the box I was looking for. He turned bright red, slammed the box shut, and disappeared with it. For years after, he couldn't say the word tool around me without me having to stifle giggles and him turning red. LOL. Story 11. When I was a teenager, this guy down my street owned a pickup truck, and people would hire him for odd jobs. He would pick me up on the weekend and we would clear leaves, help people move furniture, paint rooms, whatever. One day he picks me up, I'm like 14, and tells me that an apartment complex manager got a hold of his number and wants us to move the belongings of a woman that has been evicted. This is way before any TV show about hoarders or anything like that, so I have no idea what I'm in for. It was a nightmare. There were piles of newspapers and pornographic magazines stacked as tall as a person. Every dish in the house was filthy. Rotted food containers of all shapes and sizes were strewn about. There were piles of actual in her house. I found a box of filthy used dildos and vibrators. Every square inch of her floor was covered in filth. I actually had to use a flat-edged metal shovel to scrape the filth off her carpet. Underneath everything was a layer of black putrescent jelly. Everywhere. We did that all day. No face mask, just a year-old kid that wanted pocket money. Hardest $40 I ever made. Story 12. Not embarrassing or disturbing, but my girlfriend Dalfianca was helping my parents move. I lived 2 hours away and had to work that week, so she generously offered to help, even though she'd only met them a week before. My parents were downsizing, so they were throwing a lot of old stuff out. They were about to get rid of a box of my grandfather's old stamps, but she stopped them. When they took a break from packing, she went through them. He collected so many cool stamps. Stamps from the 1960s Olympics, different countries, Disney stamps. It was an amazing collection. She still hasn't put away for me even though we live in different provinces now. I can't wait to see her again. Story 13. Had an old couch cancer of a roommate. He eventually got kicked out for not having any money to pay bills or rent. He owned little, but left a bunch of dirty clothes for us to deal with. One day, a wooden spoon got knocked behind the fridge, so we had to move it to retrieve the spoon. Behind the fridge was many used condoms. Here's the kicker. He never had any girls over. So we theorized he jerked off into condoms, and rather than toss them in the trash, he just whipped them behind the fridge. We told this story to previous roommates we knew, and they told us after he left their place they found piles of cum socks under the couch he lived on. Horrified, we checked under the couch he slept on when we got home. Yep. Story 14. I used to do all sorts of odd jobs when I was in high school to get spending money. I helped a moving company on weekends for a while. This was in the 80s, so remember the pre-internet era where you couldn't just get stuff easily. We were helping move some man out of his family home, i.e., he was getting turfed. I lifted one box and the bottom fell out and a heap of magazines fell on the floor. In that pre-internet era, I don't even know where people got his material. You sure as hell didn't find it in a corner store. The cover of one magazine featured a portly middle-aged man disciplining a crying schoolgirl. This was gross stuff, at least to me. Anyway, I had to tape up the box, pack them all away again, and put it in the truck. Story 15. Not a friend but my tenant. We had a knock on our door late at night and 2 police were standing outside. They told us our tenant wouldn't be coming home again and asked for next of kin info. I found out later that he had died in a car accident. His family reached out to coordinate. They lived across the country and asked me if I could check on his place for anything that might rot. He was an older guy who lived alone, so I agreed and went down to check it out. I first went into his office. The first thing I noticed was a full basket of used tissues next to his computer. I assumed, for a few reasons, that they were full of cum. He was a good tenant that I had for years and wanted to do him a solid, so I threw them out. There were also at least 6 thumb drives on the computer desk, but I figured best to leave them. Next, I went into his bedroom. As soon as I flicked on the light, I saw dresses, bras, and panties scattered all around the room. He also had a wardrobe with both doors open that had hundreds of individually boxed maxi pads spilling out. I looked down and saw that the used panties on the floor had used maxi pads in them, and they were all full of piss. There were also little cutouts of foam on his dresser that looked like bra stuffers. I figured he was a cross-dresser in secret. I don't have anything against that, but I was surprised just because he was a big, burly French dude who didn't seem the type. This time, I wasn't sure what to do. I got rid of the cum rags and then decided to at least get rid of the used pads. But I was torn if I should get rid of the cross-dressing stuff. I recalled how private he was and would never allow me to enter the apartment without him being there. So I had a hunch nobody knew about this. But what if the family did know? They would wonder why none of it was there. I decided to remove all of the soil pads but leave the clothing and box pads. His son and 3 daughters arrived a few days later to gather his things. I let them in and then stopped at the door and told them to message if they needed anything. Just a few minutes later, the son texted me and asked me to come back. As soon as he saw me, he said, "Did my father have a woman friend who stayed here with him?" I knew right away what he meant. I stalled and stuttered and said that. I remember seeing a woman come by here a few times. I'm not sure who she was, he thanked me, and that was all he wanted to know. I went upstairs into my apartment and sat down. Right away, I could hear them all begin to scream and sob. I don't think because of the cross-dressing stuff, just grieving. I started to cry, alone. He was my downstairs tenant for years, and we used to have each over for supper. It hit really hard at that moment. They ended up leaving early. They hired a cleaning company to empty the place and throw out all of his stuff. Once they left, I went outside and saw that they stuffed all the cross-dressing stuff into our green bin, which sucked for many reasons, one of them being that the green bin was half full of organic waste already. I still wonder if I made the right choice. Maybe I should have just put the stuff in my apartment and see if they ask about it. Is it better that they know? Is he in some other plane of existence cursing me right now? Hey, the whole thing sucked. Alright folks, that's a wrap. If you like more of this, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your thoughts in the comment below. I'll see you in the next video.